Hi, it's Devlin. I was just about to take a trip down memory lane. Why don't you join me? 1980s was a big year in movies. And this year, any movie that was released in 1980 will basically be celebrating 40 years. It's hard to believe. And there's going to be a lot of celebrations for movies like Empire Strikes Back, The Shining, Airplane, Blues Brothers, Caddyshack. But you know what? There is one movie that might not get the love it deserves. And so that's why I decided I better do something about it. Xanadu. Xanadu was released on August 8th, 1980, which makes it 40 years old. Yeah. You may have noticed I'm a little bit of an Olivia Newton-John fan. I became a big fan of Grease, and Xanadu just took me over the top. A little something you might not know about me is I really loved Olivia in Grease, and I became obsessed with Grease. But it wasn't until Xanadu where I actually became a huge Olivia fan, and I went back and listened to all her music and stuff like that. So Xanadu is very special to me. Now, if you look at my top movies of all time, Grease is at number 2 right now. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. But recently on Facebook, I was asked to list 10 movies that had an impact on my life. And as much as I love Grease, Grease wasn't on that list. But yeah, you can guess it. Xanadu was. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it. And hope that, maybe it's a movie that you love, or maybe it's a movie you might want to rediscover. But let's get some background on Xanadu. As I said, it was released on August 8th, 1980. The soundtrack had already become a huge thing, thanks to the music of Olivia Newton-John and Electric Light Orchestra, also Cliff Richard and the Tubes. Let's give everybody their due. Xanadu was already a hit soundtrack. It had top 10 hits from ELO with I'm Alive and All Over the World. Magic, Xanadu, and Suddenly were already pretty well established by the time the movie came out. When the movie was released, it was actually expected to be the #1 movie of the week. But another movie kind of caused it some trouble. Can't Stop the Music with the Village People, which was released a couple months beforehand. That movie, of course, bombed, and it made movie theaters a little bit leery about another disco movie. And a lot of movie theaters at the last minute pulled out and kind of hurt Xanadu's box office. Now, Xanadu didn't do too bad. It cost $20 million to make, and it made $23 million, but it was still considered a disappointment. Over the years, I've been happy to say that in the 40 years, I've met a lot of people who are endeared to Xanadu. And it's become a cult classic. And I don't know what it is that I love so much about the movie. It was kind of grouped in a whole bunch of disco movies, but there's so much more. Okay, the initial story is a muse comes down from Mount Olympus to help build a roller skating disco. I'll admit, that's the story. But the movie's got so much more than that. In fact, the music is more pop than disco. It even has some ballads, it has some 1940s flair, and some rock, if you want to go for the ELO stuff. But Xanadu took some chances, too. They threw everything at this. And this movie wasn't even supposed to be a musical at first. It's loosely based on an old Rita Hayworth movie. And when Olivia Newton-John was first linked to it, they even had tones that it wasn't going to be a musical. It was going to be like a drama, sci-fi fantasy. Then when Gene Kelly came aboard, they basically said, let's make a musical. What made things worse, though, is Gene Kelly agreed to the movie, but he agreed that he wasn't going to do any dancing or singing in it. So now you got one of the greatest dancers of all time saying, no, I'm not doing it. Apparently the first day on the set, he talked to the choreographer and basically said, what would you have done if we did a musical number? Well, after talking for a couple of hours and was impressed by the choreographer, who was Kenny Ortega, who went on to direct other movies like Slips me the High School Musical movies. I know he did choreography on movies like Footloose and a lot of great films. But basically what happened was Gene Kelly said, yeah, I'll do a musical number, but it's only going to be me, Kenny, Olivia, and whatever you need to film it. I want it to be a closed set. And we got a great dance number called Whenever I'm Away From You, which kind of puts Gene and Olivia back in the 1940s, and it's so beautiful. I recently showed it to Damien, and he didn't like the movie quite as much as me, but he absolutely loved that part of it. And Gene went on to okay other things. There's an awesome scene where he actually, like, this guy was in his 70s at the time. It's his last movie where he actually acted in, and he's on roller skates for the big Xanadu premiere. He also gets to walk around in some unusual outfits in the all over the world part, including a gigantic sized pinball machine. So Gene must have warmed to the movie. Olivia wasn't a big fan of the movie when it first came out, but she's warmed to it too. And I think a lot of people have, because I remember that some of the reviews when they first came out, and one of my favorites was Xanadu, but a lot of people said that the movie, if you just concentrate on the musical sequences, it's actually not that bad. Sure, the story's a bit iffy, the acting's questionable, but the musical sequences are a lot of fun. And they try everything. Even at the last minute, they called in Don Bluth to add an animation sequence. The movie was already over budget, but they gave it. I get chills talking about this movie, and I can't wait to watch it again for its 40th. It's not easy being a Xanadu fan, but over the years, it's gotten a little easier. As I said, I find more people saying, oh, I love that movie, or smile. I'm absolutely happy to say that I am a person who has shown Xanadu for their first time to many people. And if you're one of them watching, don't forget to let me know that I was one of the ones to put you on it, whether you liked it or not. I know some love it when I show it to them and some don't. But Xanadu deserves to be celebrated on its 40th anniversary because it is just so much fun. I'll admit there's a lot of cheese and a lot of camp, but you know what? Sometimes you don't want a movie with depth and that. And this is a perfect movie to put on any time and just enjoy the magic. Why it in fact caused me to change my life is because this movie actually made me believe in dreams. I love the idea of somebody being able to inspire someone to follow their dreams. Yes, in this case, it's building a roller disco palace. But I have actually tried to help people along the way in small ways to move them forward. And it was because of this movie. Because this movie truly made me believe in magic. And the song Magic, which doesn't get as much use as it should in this, is one of my favorite songs. No, my favorite song of all time. So yes, I'm tearing up for a movie that a lot of people wrote off as nothing. But hey, I also got to see it become a Broadway musical. And it may not have lasted long, but it got a Tony nomination for Best Picture. And I got to see a version of it, and it wasn't so bad. They actually play up all the comedy and the cheese of it all. And I don't mind now. I used to be very defensive of Xanadu when people put it down, but now I love every bright-colored, cheesy moment of this film, and I am going to celebrate it, and I hope you do too. Maybe if you haven't seen it in a while, give it a rewatch. Hey, if you need to, call your friends over, have a good laugh, because there's lots to laugh about. I still laugh at lots of parts too. But there will be some others that will be like, oh, this is true heaven. That'll be me. Thank you for joining me on this. If you have any stories about Xanadu or love or hate for Xanadu, tell me in your comments. Let's talk about this movie. This movie deserves to be talked about. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications and just like this video. Thank you for joining me on this trip down memory lane, and I'm going to see you next time.